Welcome into the Fun Astrology Podcast for Thursday, July 6th. Thomas Miller here, and I've got to tell you something. We're going to go wading deep today, so if you are kind of like not ready for a deep dive, well, I don't know. This one isn't terribly bad, but it is a little thick. I always try to warn you when we're going to look at the shadow, and we're going to look at it as we continue what we really started yesterday, talking about the nodes of the moon changing signs on July 17th, just a couple of hours after the new moon. Now, speaking of, let's mention today's one big aspect, the moon changing signs. 1:30 this afternoon, the moon enters Pisces, and that's actually a good change to be listening to this episode. I guess you could either say lies and deception or maybe a little bit of inspiration. Hopefully the latter for you. Now, you've probably heard some podcasts or seen some YouTube videos about this. It is when the south node of the moon leaves Scorpio into Libra and the north node leaves Taurus into Aries. That happens in the afternoon of July 17th, which happens to be about an hour after the new moon in Cancer. What does Cancer rule? Home, nurturing, comfort, roots. I'm just thinking home. I know a Cancer who just went through a divorce. It was horrible. Cancers and their home are very important together. This is about new beginnings. The nodes change signs on a new moon. I'm just dropping some things in here for you to be thinking about. Take note of that. It's going to be an astrological theme over the next 18 months. That's how long the nodes stay in a sign. Let's first go back to history. Let's let the past speak to the present. I'm going to walk you back through about the last 100 years quickly of this configuration. North node Aries, south node Libra. See what patterns you might hear. Last time, 2004 to 2006. That was when President Bush II invaded Iraq for the second time. And the first Iraqi invasion, of course, was by his father in 1990. When was that North node in Libra? 1986 to 1988. Go back the previous one, 1968 to 1969. The United States was a cauldron. Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy, the race riots. Kent State was right after that in early 1970. The Vietnam War was explosive. Go back to the previous one, 1949 to 1950. The Korean War began in 1950. The one before that was a reprieve, 1930 to 1931. Those bridge years in between World War I and World War II. Go back to the one before that, 1912 to 1913. World War I began in 1914, so this was the buildup. Then I wondered, what about the Revolutionary War? We just celebrated Independence Day, number 247. What was going on back then? That was an 8-year war, 1775 to 1783, and this aspect of the nodes of the moon was right at the end of it, the 2 years prior. So, obviously, you heard the theme. Now, I can speak to this aspect because I have the exact opposite. My north node is in Libra and south node is in Aries. So, much of my spiritual path has been working through both sides of this. And remember, this is under that Cancer new moon. But the south node in Libra could indicate an abandonment of the harmony and peace and love and beauty and home represented by Libra. And I know you're ahead of me already, moving toward conflict. Yes, my little south node Aries soul came into a world that was not safe because of all the battles before. And when you hear that list of the north node in Aries, I mean, there's the fighting, right? Because you're moving in that direction, so there it is. And then for those who have experienced that, they come back like I did, and you bring that with you, and it's like all of a sudden you're looking around going, who's going to shoot me? Who's going to shoot me? Much of my life was driven by fear. That's the residual of the north node in Aries. It's what I had to work through on my spiritual path. And just a parenthesis here, if you'd like to hear Robert Glasscock's opinion on this, we also recorded that, and it will be out on Old Soul, New Soul. Not sure when, but it will be before July 17th. Now, what's the positive side of this? How can we position ourselves to be highest timeline people when history tells us we're careening in a different direction? Let's talk about Libra first. That's where the shadow is. That's the south node. The first thing I'm going to suggest is examine how love shows up for you. Libra, ruled by Venus, is the astrological poster child for Valentine's Day, right? It's all about love. It's about harmony, yes, but that's a result of love. It's about balance. That's a result of love. So one of the things you can do with this South Node Libra for your highest timeline is to examine how love plays out in your life. And from this perspective, authenticity. You know, there's the saying, you're in love with the idea of something, not necessarily the thing. So that could be another human in your life. You know, I'm in love with the idea of this relationship, but not really the nuts and bolts of this relationship. That kind of thing. So it's an opportunity to really examine that part of your life and just open it up and have a look at it, because the energy is there for positive change in that area. For deliberately creating harmony in your world. That's another one. Bringing people together, identifying pockets of discord, and being willing to stand for the solution positively. Another area you might look at that would be a pure South Node in Libra interpretation is, where have you been too much of a doormat? Where have you not stood up for yourself? Where have you not put your own mask on first, as we say, right? It's like, where are you focusing so much on others that you've abandoned your own inner peace and harmony? You've scattered it to the wind, and I would say passivity is its cousin. Now, here's where we flip it over to the other side, the North Node in Aries. I mean, going back the last 100 years, and including the U.S. Revolutionary War, you would have to say that we are moving toward North Node, at least action, conflict, if not war. And that may be in the cards for the collective. Only time will tell. So you heard the history. The question now is, what do we do? What I'm going to suggest, just knowing the conflict that can be embedded in the North Node in Aries from my own life, as we are identifying those areas of love and harmony and where there is discord, as we move into Aries, it is calling us to action. And for some people to be on their highest timeline, that might very well be, and hear me here, it would be okay to be engaging in some kind of conflict, some kind of battle. Nobody on this planet had freedom that they didn't fight for. So it might very well be that your calling is to say, I am one who is called to stand for freedom right now. And if you join forces and you go to fight, may God be with you. And thank you for your service. Maybe it's a local cause that you become involved in. Maybe your stand is on the spiritual plane. Look for ways to take more action. Maybe you organize a group of people who stand in the light, a prayer chain. Maybe you're standing for some of these social causes that you may or may not agree with, where society is heading these days. That's for you to determine between you and your soul, how you are going to be standing, fighting if called, or at least taking action for what is light and what is right. What is right for you and for your family and for your society and culture is not anything that I can determine, obviously. But hey, this afternoon you have a Piscean moon, so maybe you could do some internalizing and asking, because next couple of days is a great time for it. But let me just leave you with this thought. There's a saying that those who don't stand for something fall for anything. When the nodes change signs on July 17th, it's going to be time to take a stand. It's also going to be a time to really amp up how we practice love. So how we choose our highest timeline today is to say, I choose love. Let's exit meditatively, and I'll see you back tomorrow.